Story 1. How many people readily take advice from sources like Facebook or TikTok without considering the validity of the information they are consuming? The fact that we can still be swayed in our opinion by authority or charisma is very unsettling to me. Story 2. People who believe health tips from TikTok and YouTube experts, even though a basic Google search would have shown it is bogus. Story 3. I had a woman pull into the gas station a couple of weeks ago and start pumping gas. She got everything set up and went back to her car to wait for it to finish. Somehow, she forgot she was pumping gas, started her car, and drove off, completely tearing the hose off the pump. I had to chase her down the street a bit to retrieve it. She wasn't even on her phone, just stared straight ahead. I think maybe her brain update failed due to lack of space. I don't know. Story 4. It is bad enough that some people have decided to outsource all of their thinking to something that cannot even think. They have just released a new model, and everyone is upset that it is not as agreeable as the previous models. No, the unthinking computer program will not support my delusions anymore. Story 5. Seeing for myself how little facts influence beliefs. Well, that is your opinion, man. Forget me, gravity, human biology, and history are not opinions. Story 6. The number of times people look at out-of-order signs, stare at them for a moment, attempt to use the item with the sign on it, such as a vending machine, elevator, bathroom, or pinball machine, and then get upset when it does not work or takes their money is remarkable. Story 7. People seeing their partner flirting with someone else at an event and responding by getting mad at the person being flirted with, even if they actively refuse the advances. Women who go out of their way to play hard to get, then wonder why every man she has ever dated is disrespectful. Insecure men who buy the largest, most fuel-inefficient car they can, go out of their way to make the engine even less efficient purely to spite environmentalists they will never meet, then wonder why they cannot afford basic necessities. People who act like abusive trolls on social media and then are genuinely surprised when moderators respond accordingly. Story 8. Younger brother has a 1-year-old daughter. He works 3 jobs while his wife makes videos and stays at home all day. He is very overweight and in poor health and does little to take care of himself. When we went on vacation, he would ask you to hold his daughter, then walk away. He wants another child. Story 9. That Housewives of Beverly Hills is still a show. Same with the Kardashians and Love Island. Like, what? Story 10. People scream at call center staff and checkout staff about prices and policies, which are set by the company. I am sure Susan, who is restocking the personal care aisle at Walmart, is not often invited to board meetings to set corporate policy. So why yell in her face about how the price used to be cheaper 10 years ago? Story 11. People who take out payday loans with an 800% interest rate and can never really pay them back. People who have car payments of $1,000 or more per month, most likely with high interest. People who get a store credit card to save $10 on today's purchase. I teach 7th grade math and the students do not know better, but some adults are clueless about math and unaware of the interest added to items, thinking a 20% car loan interest rate is no big deal. Story 12. I work with people who cannot consistently keep doors locked for safety reasons, open boxes correctly, put things back where they found them, do jobs consistently, resolve conflicts without drama, and communicate expectations. The flip side of realizing how unintelligent many people are is recognizing that I am one of the smartest people present and accepting the responsibility that comes with that. Story 13. When people do the clap, arms in the air move when Queen's We Will Rock You plays. Not only is that move from Radio GAGA, the song We Will Rock You clearly consists of 2 foot stomps and a clap. It makes me wonder how people can take part in something so obviously wrong when you can literally hear it. Story 14. The examples are countless. Like how the whole world is being lied to by our media and governments, yet everyone keeps believing. Like how America, a country with many inhabitants and thus probably many geniuses, manages to put 2 incredible fools in the running for the presidency. Like how my colleagues cannot even understand the simplest of tasks. Like how my highly intelligent friends allow social media to influence their minds with all kinds of toxic mentalities. People are mindless followers wanting to be led no matter where. We would rather believe in easy lies than in hard truths. And even if we find we have been lied to, we would still willfully spread that lie rather than acknowledge our failure. There are only a few outliers who refuse to follow the stream, and those are my people. The rest can follow their chosen leaders into oblivion for all I care. Story 15. When people do not understand something you say because there is a gap in their vocabulary or knowledge, and instead of asking you for clarification, they just filter out the part they did not understand. Imagine Derek Zoolander saying, "But why male models?" Except they are not even smart enough to ask. They think, "The words went into my ears, so I have received the value of what was said." Even worse is when later they say, "You did not tell me that." And you respond, "Yes, I did. I said this and that." But then they say, "I did not understand that part," as if it is some kind of gotcha. How was I supposed to know you did not understand if you respond the same way whether you understand or not? Am I supposed to quiz you for comprehension after every conversation like a grade school teacher? Story 16. The fact that Donald Trump is in office again after the disaster of his first term shows that his base is incredibly uninformed. Story 17. How we continue to think about alcohol as a mild substance even though it causes numerous cancers and drug-related fatalities. Story 18. Modern-day road users. What are these driving instructors teaching or not teaching people nowadays? Story 19. The constant misunderstanding of complex issues involving money, the economy, and global trade. These are the first people who blame everyone else for their problems but have no awareness of their ignorance in economics. Story 20. The car loan debt situation. My boss, who should presumably be smarter than me, was talking about picking up a $500 lease on a sport utility vehicle. I have owned 2 cars in my life and they were paid in full. The car situation is foolish, and most people could afford a house or a better life if they did not spend so much on a new car each year. Story 21. Smokers cause vast fires by throwing their cigarettes. It's not heavy, just put it back in the pack. Yes, it smells bad, but not worse than the 13,000 hectares of land you burned last week. Story 22. The one thing that comes to mind first and has always been there is smoking. As I have grown, I have seen many examples I could use, but smoking has puzzled me since I was a child. It is unpleasant, and it feels like you almost have to force yourself to do it. Then you get addicted, it makes you extremely unhealthy and likely to kill you, and we, as a collective, know this is fact, yet still do it anyway. I have never smoked, as I saw what it did to my father and stayed clear. Story 23. When the first car has completely cleared the intersection at a left turn green light, but the second car has just started moving and hasn't even entered the intersection when the light turns yellow, there is a long line of cars waiting. Story 24. The United States voting for Donald Trump again and people generally believing he is a good, honest man is obviously not true. Story 25. Driving recklessly and attracting unwanted attention while having no license, no insurance, and possessing drugs or firearms. Story 26. Cigarette smokers and supporters of Donald Trump are everywhere. Combine the two, and you have the most toxic individuals on the planet. Story 27. Anything anti-vaccine. I am controlled by the government now, apparently. When they need me, they will just flick a switch and poof, I become a robot. It is sad, but more so, it is horrifying. Story 28. Not knowing how to check your emails for a booking or similar necessary information. I understand that there are people who are not as proficient with technology or have some sort of technophobia, but you mean to tell me that despite email being around for at least 50 years and needing to be used for almost everything nowadays, you still have not figured out the basics? Come on. Story 29. Voting for people who said they would take their rights away, then complaining about it when it happens. It is even worse if they remain loyal followers of that politician and make being a supporter part of their personal identity. I do not care what side someone is on. Building your personality around a political candidate seems ridiculous. Story 30. Pro-life people, people who believe the earth is flat, people who support war, rapists, anti-lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people as an identity or sexual orientation. I oppose those who think that LGBTQ individuals do not face discrimination but, at the same time, separate themselves from others, making themselves subject to discrimination. Regarding sexual orientation, one can love whomever they want. Regarding identity, you can feel like being whatever you choose. Pedophiles, I have just scratched the surface. Story 31. Re-electing a felon who also appears to be desperately hiding his past criminal behavior just to watch him destroy society, the economy, and the United States standing in the world. Story 32. When a lane is ending, and people literally wait until the last 5 meters to merge, then act shocked when no one lets them in. Story 33. How many people choose to believe the company rather than research on their own and continue to use lawn chemicals, both spray and the more concentrated and toxic weed and feed? Among those, how many do not use basic observation skills to see that while the chemicals kill the plants, they also cause them to reproduce faster? 1. Dandelions grow. 2. Apply chemicals. 3. Chemicals, at least the ones applied in my area, cause accelerated growth and swift death, but, in the meantime, force the dandelions to go to seed. 4. New dandelions from seeds grow in late summer and fall. This seldom happens if pesticides are not used. 5. Lawn chemical companies profit from you applying a second treatment. 6. See number 3. 7. In spring, the cycle continues. Moreover, in January and February, I regularly see moderate numbers of dandelions growing along the sides of buildings where it is warmer. This was rarely seen 30 to 40 years ago. Back then, seeing a single dandelion grow in winter was an event. Meanwhile, people do not understand why the bladder cancer rate in dogs has skyrocketed. Both those who apply chemicals and the cities that spray parks where dogs relieve themselves are contributing to the problem. Dogs are close to the ground, absorbing chemicals through their skin and inhaling more than humans. Many people, including myself, are mostly housebound during the entire warm season, especially in spring and early fall, because people have been trained to waste money and harm themselves, their pets, and the environment with 2 chemical applications a year instead of 1. What do the chemicals do to me? Dizziness, altered sense of taste, joint pain and swelling, migraines. The worst effect is breast cysts that grow so large I have to have them aspirated. Needles inserted into the breast tissue to drain them, because otherwise they become so large that it is painful to breathe. Migraines are excruciating, but at least I can take a full breath without pain. Story 34. Not even from a meme perspective. I cannot in good faith believe in the United States of America's overall intelligence when they voted in a convicted felon who is now trying to literally take over the country using military power. Story 35. When people criticize Kerala for having 100% literacy, first understand what literacy means. The government is working to ensure that all children receive a basic education, but some people are being unreasonable. When Kerala is mentioned, they say, oh, 100% literacy. This should make you proud because Kerala does not need any special schemes or government funds to educate its children. Story 36. The whole rest of my life leading up to today. Humans are not very smart. That includes the smartest among us. For example, all data shows that the Earth's climate is spinning out of control, yet we are not devoting the majority of our resources to fixing that, even though the outcome is already catastrophic and may become a planet-level extinction event. And why? Here is the problem described in a nutshell, explained as if to a 5-year-old. Party A. We are all going to go extinct if we do not change. Party B. No, we will not. Party C. Oh dear, who is right? A or B? All parties. Well, we cannot agree, so I guess we will just keep doing what we are doing. Story 37. There are many people holding negative opinions about various things who cannot explain why. These people are not very intelligent. Story 38. Smartphones have been popular for nearly 20 years. The sheer number of people who do not and will not learn how one works despite needing to own one astounds me. Story 39. Well, everyone around me makes me think, wow, I really am not that smart. How am I going to put on a smile and try to help kids when I am struggling myself? Story 40. People who blindly believe that Google provides them with pure, unadulterated truth are mistaken. Besides a fair amount of misinformation, there are mistakes and misunderstandings. For example, a coworker asked the virtual assistant if king cobras live in the United States. The short answer was yes, but it took some reading to clarify that they all live in zoos or belong to keepers of exotic venomous snakes. Since he already thought they lived wild in North America and saw yes, He would have continued to believe that if someone had not encouraged him to read further. I have seen similar situations happen numerous times. Story 41. I know a person who argues in favor of various misguided health information. I have reached a point where I am just done. A few years ago, he was very enthusiastic about a vegan lifestyle. I did not say much because the evidence we have shows it is healthy as long as you still get all your vitamins. Now, he follows the carnivore diet. He also once said, "Do you not think the world would be a better place if we all agreed on one religion?" I did not have the heart to tell him that there is still a great deal of turmoil among people who believe the same things. For example, look at Italy and the Medici family. If you are so gullible that you believe random social media personalities over actual experts with degrees, I do not know what to say to you other than good luck living deeply immersed in false information. Story 42. The reason we do not have a 1/3 pound burger is because the 1/4 pound burger exists, and 1/4 is smaller than 1/3. Therefore, people thought they were paying more for a smaller burger. Story 43. People who talk about aviation say, "If it is Boeing, I am not going." They tell me that they have no intelligence. Story 44. Probably whoever clicks this annoying superhuman advertisement on YouTube, where some old buff guy tells me that if I make more than $150,000 and am self-conscious about my gut hanging out, I should buy his pills or something. Does this advertisement actually work on people? Story 45. Every election year, people wholeheartedly believe their candidate will save the world and improve life for the common person. Story 46. People replying to a thread imagine the most specific and fixable issue related to the post and use that as a what-if scenario. People really think they are smart by just throwing out an argument. Story 47. Username checks out for this one. How many people in the United States are buying and selling those colored moon rocks and gas station vapes? Have some self-respect, you guys. Story 48. Despite economic uncertainty and political strife, conspicuous consumption does not seem to be slowing down. It is a spectrum with various degrees. On one end, it involves items only available to the ultra-rich as the ultimate insult to others. On the other end, there are many items that people use to project the appearance of wealth. We hate billionaires and the elite, but we also worship wealth. We resemble an ancient civilization that worships a capricious and sadistic god with hatred and disgust while still recognizing their existence and prevalence. To me, that is pretty foolish. Story 49. I believe driving skills, or lack of them, make me think people are careless. However, everyone needs transportation to get around, so many people fall through the cracks by being passed even though they did not make a mistake. Story 50. The general public in supermarkets can be frustrating. I had to explain to a customer and his partner with 8 children that I could not give them an electric saw to cut a garden trellis in half because it would break numerous health and safety regulations. The customer then said, "I'm just going to buy the saw, cut it, and then return it." He did not receive a refund for the saw. Story 51. Scrolling through uninformative social media posts all day. Also watching the worst of streaming shows. Story 52. Warning labels on everything. Sometimes I wonder if we should just get rid of all the warning labels and let nature take its course. Story 53. Half of all people have below average intelligence. Additionally, there are willfully ignorant or lazy individuals who consider themselves intelligent. As a result, many people make decisions without having the necessary tools to do so. Story 54. People who proudly and confidently believe that there is a magical invisible wizard in the sky who simultaneously controls every aspect of reality and has given us all free will. This wizard is believed to respond positively to pleas for their sports team winning, for fingernails to grow longer, and for the rain to stop, while simultaneously allowing pain, suffering, war, disease, and rape for tens of millions of its creation every day since the beginning of time. Story 55. Anytime I have to drive somewhere, every time I put the key in the ignition, I think to myself, what new foolish thing am I going to see today? Story 56. Watching people share absolute nonsense with total confidence. The combination of zero expertise and 100% certainty is unbeatable. A 30-second video will convince someone more than a 30-year expert ever could. Story 57. They had to make cars tell people when to change their oil, yet people still go 15,000 miles between oil changes. I am terrified of used cars. Story 58. How many people believe a certain media channel that rhymes with box? And the number of people who bought Teslas and paid for full self-driving absolutely baffles my mind. Story 59. Spatial awareness or lack thereof. How to physically exist in public spaces. Simple things like looking in the direction you are walking. It is surprising how I have to avoid completely unaware adults who never learned basic skills. People will stop and have a reunion in supermarket aisles and stand on both sides talking across the aisle instead of standing on one side so others can pass. Bonus points for shopping carts pointed inward. The same scenario happens on sidewalks, where 3 to 5 people walk side by side, refusing to move for one person coming in the opposite direction. The most popular place for a gathering is doorways. Outside, there is a huge open space where hundreds could gather, yet people stand in the narrowest place possible and block the way for everyone. They do not take a hint when people walk sideways to get through. Why do people stop at the top and bottom of escalators? Story 60. Driving through a crowded or somewhat crowded parking garage. I swear people's brains go in limp mode and half their brain cells go to sleep the second they pull in. Story 61. I was getting my license changed over to a state I had just moved to. Next to me was a 17 or 18-year-old girl taking her written driver's test for the 20th time. The staff were encouraging her that she would get it eventually. It is a 20-question test. Not only was she bad enough to not accidentally pass it 10 tries ago, but everyone else around me was perfectly fine with someone that unprepared being behind the wheel of a 2-ton vehicle. Story 62. When they are under the impression that because someone is smart in one way, they are smart in every way and are the authority on every matter. Story 63. Every story where a person was deceived over social media by a top-tier celebrity who needed to borrow all of their life savings. Story 64. Mum groups on Facebook. People with low intelligence should not be procreating, but unfortunately, the groups show they are doing just that. Story 65. Thinking that not voting for one political party will save democracy is incorrect. If the opposing side cannot be in power, then democracy does not exist. Story 66. Following a health and fitness influencer who has no medical or science degree, no formal training, and no high-level sports achievements. Story 67. People who follow what the commercial media tells them to follow. The news is there to corral people into being obedient little gears for the banks, investment groups, and fossil fuel companies that are the parasitic friends of Murdoch, Fairfax, whoever manages Maxwell's operations now, and others. Story 68. Not everything is black and white. For example, I say I respect my elders, and people assume I mean that as a blanket statement. The unwritten rule is that there are exceptions to everything. Story 69. I've been watching some YouTube videos about people running up massive debts on credit cards and car loans, then refusing to make payments, and it's astonishing how entitled they sound. Really? You think banks are going to give up when you don't pay your debts? For me, the funniest one was a comment about how hilarious it was to owe all that money for clothes. Clothes. I'm currently wearing a 15-year-old t-shirt and a 20-year-old pair of shorts. These people are going to regret all that debt when it comes time to get a car loan or buy a house because their credit score will be poor and no one will lend them any money. Hope you get lots of mileage out of those classy clothes. Story 70. Many people do not understand the difference between insurance and warranty and how each works, whether it involves homes or cars. Story 71. Working in a high school, especially as an information technology person, I am astonished by the number of adults who cannot follow directions, even when pictures are included. Story 72. When people achieve big things in life but forget the family who stood by them when no one else was there, that is when I think people really are not that smart. Story 73. People create their own subtext from a statement that means one thing as having more than one meaning. A classic example is someone saying, "I like pancakes," and the other person responds, "Oh, so you hate waffles?" Story 74. I work at a restaurant, and taking orders from people is like pulling teeth for some reason. It makes me think, are you all not paying attention? Story 75. People at rush hour are almost causing accidents at a merge lane. Statistically, most drivers on the road at this time should remember when and where a merge lane on a highway exists, after likely driving the same route hundreds, if not thousands of times already. Yet, they still do not anticipate it at 70 miles per hour. Story 76. Here is a benign example that does not harm anyone but still frustrates me as a Superman fan. People dismiss the James Gunn version by criticizing the Snyder Superman, intentionally leaving out context or outright ignoring what the Snyder cut of Batman vs. Superman in Justice League did with Superman. Story 77. People I know make less than $45,000 a year, but buy brand new pickup trucks as their daily commuter vehicles. Story 78. People say that because they do not have an addictive personality and take Valium, a benzodiazepine, as prescribed, they will be okay. That drug is harmful and can cause dependence within 4 weeks of use. Story 79. I do not think of it as people being smart or not. I believe average human intelligence is vastly overrated. We are not very different from ants in that most humans are expendable. The precious few who actually advance human interests are rare. Consumer culture, instead of creative culture, is the rubber stamp. Story 80. Talking with the average person about politics and issues reveals significant misunderstandings and gaps in historical knowledge. Story 81. On Reddit, posts receive many downvotes for sound but unpopular arguments, instead of explaining what is wrong with them. Combined with avoiding debates from the start instead of seeing them through, it makes me sigh. Story 82. People who decide to chain and neglect their dog to live outside alone, despite dogs being highly social pack animals, often do so because they did not potty train it. There are thousands of dog training videos and websites available to educate you, or you could simply ask a more knowledgeable person. It is even possible to train an older dog. Instead, they choose to mistreat an animal they supposedly love. If this describes you, you are causing harm to animals. If your neighbors are doing this, you should take action. Support chain-free dogs. Donate. Story 83. A country twice voting a generationally incompetent person as their president. A group of unwise individuals indeed. Story 84. Modern war. Why would anyone have to die or kill for land and resources that an individual civilian has to buy anyway? And for some older people with an idea who are just at home eating a nice dinner while soldiers die. Maybe I don't understand war well, but I find it foolish. Story 85. Maybe not a direct translation to one's intelligence, but I have always thought it was rather unwise to participate in an orchestrated chant. Think Jerry Springer, where a fight breaks out and the crowd chants, "Jerry, Jerry, Jerry," or in recent years, where fans at sporting events chant, "Most valuable player, most valuable player, most valuable player." Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.